Donald Trump thought he could shut Jasmine Crockett down on live TV, but what happened next left him red-faced and walking out of the room. This is the moment Jasmine Crockett showed the country what real leadership looks like. Bright studio. Lights shine on a polished table set in the middle of the stage. The live broadcast has just begun, and across the country, millions of people are watching. The moderator's voice is calm but serious as he welcomes viewers. Tonight, he says, we're focusing on the real issues Americans face every single day. The rising cost of living, broken healthcare, and the question of justice for all. The words hang in the air. These aren't just talking points. These are struggles that shape everyday life for millions of families. Jasmine Crockett is sitting on one side of the table. She's focused, collected, and ready. You can see the weight of the conversation in her expression. She knows how many people are counting on her to say what they feel. When the moderator turns to her, the room falls silent. Jasmine leans forward slightly, her hands resting on the table. Her voice is calm, steady, and warm, but there's power behind it. She begins with the economy. Across this country, she says, there are parents working 2, sometimes 3 jobs and still struggling to keep food on the table. There are seniors who work their whole lives but can't afford their medicine. People are scared, not of hard work, but of what happens when that hard work still isn't enough. The camera pans slowly to the audience. Some nod quietly. I almost feel the weight of her words settling on the room. Jasmine shifts to healthcare. Her tone is sharper now, more urgent. No one should have to choose between taking their child to the doctor and paying the light bill, but that's what's happening. And every time we delay action, people suffer. People die. There's a pause. The room is silent again. The moderator looks almost surprised by how quiet the audience is. Then Jasmine turns to the last point. Justice. When we talk about justice, she says we're not just talking about courtrooms. We're talking about fairness everywhere. At work, at school, in our neighborhoods. People are tired of feeling like the system isn't built for them. They want leaders who fight for them, not just for the powerful. Her voice grows firmer. That's why we're here tonight, not to trade insults or throw slogans around, but to talk about how we actually fix these problems. The words land hard. It's clear she isn't there to play games. For a brief moment, the entire studio feels united. Even the camera angles seem to soften, framing Jasmine as a voice of reason. The audience appears moved, heads nodding, some leaning forward in their seats. It feels like a real conversation about real solutions is about to unfold. But then the sound of a microphone shifting breaks the moment. Donald Trump, sitting across from Jasmine, leans forward. He hasn't said much yet, but everyone knows that when he speaks, he dominates the room. And in that instant, the energy changes. Viewers at home can feel it, too. That tense moment when something is about to happen, and you don't know which way it will go. Trump clears his throat, his signature confidence returning to the center of attention. And with one sharp comment, he cuts through the calm atmosphere that Jasmine has built. The studio is quiet. Jasmine has just finished laying out her points: the economy, healthcare, and justice. And the audience is hanging on her every word. But then there's a shift. Donald Trump leans forward in his chair, his hand tapping lightly on the table. His expression is half a smirk, half a glare. He waits for just a second longer than necessary, the kind of pause that makes everyone hold their breath before speaking. And then it comes. You know nothing about USA's issues, he says with a sharp laugh. Waving his hand as if to brush off everything Jasmine just said, the sound echoes through the studio. It's not just what he said, it's the tone. Dismissive, belittling, the kind of tone that says, I own this stage now. Jasmine blinks, but doesn't move. The moderator shifts uncomfortably in his seat, trying to decide whether to step in. The audience murmurs softly, a mix of gasps and low whispers. But Trump isn't finished. He leans in closer, his voice louder now. Tell me something, he says, pointing a finger toward Jasmine. Are you really from America or Africa? The words hang in the air like smoke. For a second, there's absolute silence. Even the cameras seem to hesitate, unsure of where to focus. Then, a collective reaction. The audience gasps, some covering their mouths. Others look around as if to ask, did he really just say that? The moderator looks stunned, his hand frozen over a stack of papers. Trump, however, sits back with a satisfied expression, as if he just delivered the knockout punch. He glances toward the crowd, waiting for applause, waiting for laughter, but none comes. Instead, the air feels heavy. Jasmine's face stays calm, but you can see the faintest flash in her eyes. A quiet fire. She doesn't speak yet. She lets the silence build. Lets Trump sit in the moment he just created. Trump, sensing the quiet, fills it with more words. You know, he continues, people like you stand here talking about justice, talking about the economy, But you don't understand America like I do. I built businesses. I made jobs. I am the reason this country is strong right now. He points at Jasmine again, his voice rising, his words fast and forceful. You're just trying to make me look bad because you have nothing real to say. The attack is personal now. It's no longer just about policy. It's about questioning Jasmine's place at the table, her right to speak. The camera cuts to the audience again. You can see people on the edge of their seats waiting to see what she does. This is the moment. The one that could break someone's composure. The one that could end with shouting or walking off. But Jasmine doesn't flinch. She sits back in her chair, folds her hands, and takes a slow breath. Trump is still talking. Still, throwing words across the table like jabs in a boxing match. But Jasmine's calm is what suddenly starts to stand out. And then she looks at him. Not just a glance. A long, steady look that makes the entire studio quiet again. What she's about, Nessa say, will change the entire tone of the night. The moderator senses it too and stays silent. The cameras zoom in, one on Jasmine, one on Trump. This is no longer just a debate. This is about to become a showdown. The room is frozen. Trump's words are still hanging in the air. He sits back, arms crossed, a faint smirk on his face as if he's sure he has won this round. But Jasmine doesn't rush. She doesn't shout. She doesn't throw her hands up. Instead, she takes a slow, steady breath and leans forward just a little. The microphone picks up the sound of her inhale, making the moment feel even heavier. Her eyes lock on Trump, not with anger, but with something sharper, something calmer. And then in a voice so measured, it almost feels like she's whispering to the entire country. She asks, Mr. President, who is your real wife, Ivanka or Melania? The studio goes completely silent. The audience freezes. Even the moderator stops, breathing for a moment. The words slice through the air like a knife. It's not loud. It's not shouted, but it lands like a thunderclap. Trump's smirk vanishes instantly. His eyes widen, then narrow. For a split second, he doesn't speak. He doesn't even move. And in that silence, Jasmine keeps her gaze steady, refusing to look away. The cameras zoom in on Trump's face, catching every flicker of emotion, shock, confusion, and then anger. The audience starts to stir. A few gasps echo through the studio. Someone lets out a nervous laugh. Others whisper to the person next to them. Did she really just say that? Trump finally tries to break the silence. He forces out a laugh. But it sounds awkward, almost hollow. That's ridiculous, he says, waving his hand as though trying to swat the question away. But Jasmine doesn't stop. She tilts her head slightly, her voice still calm, but now carrying a sharper edge. You brought this to a personal level, she says. You questioned where I come from, but the American people deserve to know. When you talk about family values, what exactly do you mean? The room reacts. A few people clap, others cheer under their breath. Trump's face turns red, his jaw tight. He leans forward now, trying to regain control of the moment. This is disgusting, he snaps. You should be ashamed of yourself. But Jasmine just sits back, hands folded, completely unfazed. You called me out, she says, her tone almost gentle now. I'm simply asking the questions that many Americans have been thinking for years. If we're going to talk about respect, let's be honest about it. The power has shifted. Trump looks like he's searching for a comeback, but the damage is done. The room feels like it's tilting toward Jasmine now. The audience can sense it. They're sitting straighter, their eyes fixed on her. She has just taken control of the entire debate without raising her voice once. The moderator, who has been silent through all of this, finally exhales and glances at the camera. He knows they're witnessing something that will be replayed again and again. Trump tries one more time to brush it off, muttering about below-the-belt questions, but Jasmine doesn't even respond. She just holds her ground, her silence saying more than any words. It's good. And in that moment, it's clear Jasmine Crockett has not just defended herself, she has turned the entire confrontation on its head. The silence after Jasmine's question feels endless. Trump's face is tense, his lips pressed tight. For a moment, he looks like he might laugh it off. But then his expression hardens, and then it happens. His voice suddenly booms through the studio. That's a disgusting question, he shouts, slamming his hand down on the table. The sound makes several audience members jump in their seats. You've gone below the belt, he continues, his finger pointing straight at Jasmine. But Jasmine just sits there calm, her hands folded. The contrast is striking. Trump is standing now, leaning over the table, his voice echoing, while Jasmine remains seated, still and composed. The moderator opens his mouth as if to step in, but thinks better of it. This isn't a normal debate anymore. This is something raw, unpredictable. Trump turns toward the audience now as if to rally them. You all saw it, he says, his voice almost shaking with anger. She attacked me with a disgusting personal question. Nobody has ever treated a president like this. The audience reacts, but not in the way Trump expects. A few people clap, but most just sit silently watching. Others even cheer softly for Jasmine, who hasn't moved. Trump's face turns even redder. Do you think this is funny? This is a disgrace. Jasmine finally speaks, her voice low and calm, but carrying through the entire studio. You started with a personal attack, Mr. President. I stayed on the issues. You made it personal first. The audience erupts, clapping, cheering, some even whistling. The energy in the room has flipped completely. Trump shakes his head furiously. No, I was telling the truth. The cheers drown him out. And then in a flash of frustration, he reaches up, grabs his microphone, and rips it off. I'm done with this. He slams the microphone down on the table, turns his back to the stage, and storms off. The cameras follow him for a moment, capturing every step as he walks off stage. His shoulders tense, muttering to his aides. The sound of the audience is a mix of shock and electricity. People whispering, some even laughing nervously. Back on stage, Jasmine hasn't moved. She watches him go, then slowly turns back to face the moderator and the cameras. The moderator looks speechless, glancing between Jasmine and the empty chair. Across from her, the moment is surreal. The President of the United States has just walked out of a live broadcast. The camera cuts to the audience. They're still buzzing, some shaking their heads, others smiling as if they can't believe what they just saw. The tension that filled the room minutes ago has now turned into something else entirely. The sense that a line has been crossed, that something unforgettable just happened in front of everyone. When the noise finally dies down, Jasmine speaks softly, but firmly. This is exactly why I say we need leaders who can focus on real issues instead of personal attacks. This is not a game. People are counting on us. The room goes quiet again. This time it's not a tense silence. It's a respectful one. The stage is quiet now. Trump's chair sits empty. The microphone's still lying where he slammed it down. The energy in the room has shifted. It feels calmer, but also heavier, as though everyone knows they just witnessed something that will be talked about for years. Jasmine sits perfectly still for a moment, letting the silence settle. The cameras stay on her, waiting. Then she leans forward, her voice soft but steady. America, she says, her eyes locking on the camera. This conversation was never supposed to be about me. It was never supposed to be about him. It was supposed to be about you. Her words land slowly, carefully. The audience is silent now, hanging. On every sentence, she gestures toward the empty chair. When the conversation turns into insults, when we spend our time trading personal attacks, we lose sight of what really matters. And that's you. The people watching right now. The people working long hours. The people caring for their families. The people just trying to make it through the month. Her tone grows stronger, more passionate. I didn't come here tonight to fight. I came here to talk about the fact that so many of you are living paycheck to paycheck, that you're worried about whether you can afford medicine, that you want justice, not just for some, but for everyone. There's a pause. She lets those words breathe. And yes, she continues, I asked a question that made some of you uncomfortable. But that question was about integrity, because leadership isn't about who can shout the loudest. It isn't about who can throw the hardest punch. Leadership is about accountability. It's about setting an example for the next generation. So, our kids grow up believing in honesty, fairness, and respect. She glances back at the moderator, then back at the camera. Her expression softens, but her voice stays firm. You deserve leaders who talk about solutions, not distractions. Leaders who face tough questions without running away. Leaders who put you first, not their ego. The audience starts clapping softly at first, then louder, filling the room with sound. Jasmine waits until the noise dies down before speaking again, this time directly to those watching at home. Tonight, you saw what happens when we stop letting fear control the conversation, when we stand up and speak the truth, no matter who's sitting across the table. And I want you to know, you have that same power, each of you. She points gently toward the camera, almost like she's speaking to each person individually. Stand up,